All right, let's go ahead and get started. Again, please continue to type your name and what organization you're with in the chat. If you're not with an organization, you can just put community member, and we are happy to have you with us. Thank you so much, everybody, for spending your lunch hour with us today. My name is Alex Whipple, and I'm the policy co-chair of the Erie Regional Food Policy Advisory Council, also known as the Erie FPAC. We're so glad that you're able to join us today and talk about your farm and food businesses and how we can work together to promote local food in our communities. Some quick housekeeping things. Everyone is automatically placed on a mute just to make sure that we can all hear the presenter clearly and without background noise. If you have a question during the presentation, please feel free to raise your hand using that feature or use the Q&A feature to submit your questions, and we'll save them until the end. I do encourage you to submit your questions early and throughout the presentation because I know it's easy for those items to slip your mind as the presentation goes on. Lastly, this webinar is being recorded and you'll receive a link with the recording sent directly to the email that you registered with later this week. So you'll be able to reference it later or share with others who might be interested. Again, if you haven't shared your name and organization you're with in the chat, please do so. And thank you, everybody. I'm very excited to introduce our presenter today. Dan Dalton is the Three Rivers Sustainability Food Hub Programs Manager with Pasa. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's good.
So without further ado, go ahead and take it away, Dan.
All right, great. Thanks, Alex. And thanks everyone for being here. I've got a bunch of different things I'm going to cover here. If anything is of particular interest to you, either if you want to just hold on to that for questions at the end, or if you want to engage on anything in particular, feel free. I'm good either way. I would ask maybe Alex to keep an eye on the chat box because there is a lot here. So I'll try to focus on the presentation and getting everything in on time. Thanks. I'm Dan Dalton, the Three Rivers Program Manager, Hub Manager, based out of Pittsburgh. I also manage our Diversified Vegetable Apprenticeship Program, which is a formal diversified veg training program statewide. So I both regional and statewide, depending on what roles I'm with at the time. I just thought sometimes it's helpful for context just to give you a sense for the team that we're working with. I am the only person based in Western PA, but we do have a pretty broad coverage across the state. Folks from our executive director, Hannah, and a lot of folks in Central PA. We moved our offices recently from Center County down to Harrisburg to be a little bit closer to a lot of our staff and to a lot of the comings and goings of the state. And then we've got folks handling different aspects of our work broadly statewide, and a few folks who are even out of state at this point. Contributing to our work. So just want to put some names to faces in case you are reaching out to any of us, that there are people here. Just want to give a quick rundown. When we're talking about farmer resources, the Winter Conference is what we were founded around and continues to be a huge hub. We had Robin Wall-Kimmerer as a keynote this year. We also had significant featured speakers, Ratan Lal, Ricardo Salvador, Judah Schwartz, Malik Kini, and 90 or 100 other speakers across all of our sessions, something like that. If you were unable to attend this year, it was a totally virtual conference spread out across 3 weeks. It was almost the size of a regular conference in terms of the volume of programming we put on. If you weren't able to attend, you can actually register now, even after the fact. And almost all of that material that was presented live is in a recorded form in our web portal and is available for review. The one thing, and it should be available indefinitely once you have a login. The one thing we don't have continued access to is the actual login registration system. So if you weren't able to attend and you would like to have access to all of those materials, you can be in touch with me, Dan at pasafarming.org, and we can get you signed up. Those signups will end around mid-March. So you've got a couple weeks left to sign up to have access to the 2021 conference materials. Like I said, it is a great opportunity and there's lots of great subjects covered. Farmer to farmer exchange is the other thing we're founded around. Workshops, getting out there on farms. And 2020 was a challenging year for that. Obviously, with COVID, we had only 2 or 3 in-person events across the entire year. We had to transition all of the rest of our programming that would normally have been on site to virtual. The downside of that is obviously you don't get the immersion experience of being out at a site and the networking benefits, but the upside is that almost all of that material is recorded and available. We have been releasing things on our Pasa resources page, so that's pasafarming.org/resources. And the webinar recordings of, like I said, I would say 95% of our material from last year is available there or will become available there over the coming months. So we did a significant series on integrated pest management. We also did some really great programming around a bunch of different subjects.
Dan, we do have a question from Sarah, so I'm going to try again to Sarah, it says you just need to unmute and you can go ahead and ask your question. Nope, can't hear you.
No, okay.
If maybe you can just type your question in the chat and I can read it out loud. And we'll wait to hear from Sarah, and I'll, Dan, if you want to go ahead.
Okay, sure, thanks. One of the other things, and I've included the Advanced Farmer Gathering tag here, this is from our 2019 meeting, just to emphasize that we're trying more and more to integrate the layers of our programming so that they don't exist in isolation, that they complement each other. So an example of that is this Advanced Farmer Gathering, where we took folks who were participating in our research programs and our apprenticeship programs and brought them together for a 2-day series of workshops and meetings in Harrisburg, where we were able to really get into some of the nitty-gritty and sort of plot a path forward on a lot of these emerging topics. So talking about things like employee management and research interests and things like that. I'll talk about both of those programs in just a minute. But all of that to say, if you do find something that you think is a really interesting hook at Pasa, there probably is some follow-on programming either to help elucidate that more or that links in with other things we're doing. So like I said, we're just to make folks aware that we are always trying to layer our programming together. Farm-based research, we run a couple different studies. They're mostly benchmark studies, and these are not your traditional research studies in that we don't have a thesis that we're trying to prove. We are actually going out and collecting all of the data and then trying to find results from that. We're sort of working backwards. So the soil health benchmark study has grown. We are at approximately 105 farms as of the 2020 sampling year. 20 of those are new, and we have about 85% retention rate. You can see on the map here the spread of those farms, and it's always on my radar that Northwest PA is at this point unrepresented, and we'd really like to try and loop some folks in. So if you do think, and this applies to veggie crops, row crops, and pastured livestock, if you're basically in any of those systems and would be interested, or you know somebody who would be interested, Marty says you're not seeing my slides. Alex, are you able to comment on
that? Have you scrolled through any slides yet?
Yes, I'm on.
Oh, we're still seeing slide 1.
Oh my goodness. Well, let's.
I thought this was just a really great introduction.
Okay, well, let's try this screen share again. We'll see if that makes it better for everyone. My apologies for that. Are you seeing the soil health benchmark study slide?
Yes.
Okay, great. Well, you didn't miss anything huge in the previous ones, but this is where the visuals start to kick in. So let me know if you don't see them going forward. You can see all the black dots scattered there. Those are the sampling sites currently. Like I said, we're trying to get folks in Northwest PA. So like I said, please do reach out or please do refer folks to us. We are actually going out of state even. So if you've got folks into Northeast Ohio or Western New York, we might be interested in that too. And one other thing is that we're working in the next phase of this project. We're actually looking at connecting two different elements of soil health to this study. One is water and water infiltration, how healthier soils are better able to accommodate and handle water. And the other is what kind of nutrient effects you have by building your soil health. So our understanding is that healthier soils yield healthier plants, which are more nutrient dense and all of that. So we're looking to actually validate that in coming iterations of the study. Did that change for you?
Yes.
Okay, great. And then just, I mean, this gets really sciencey really quick, but I do like the visuals here of just demonstrating the difference between what our expected results are, what soil science and university research would tell us. On the left there, you have what we think the results should be for all the farmers in our study. This is the soil health study again. And on the right, you see what we actually observed from their results. So you can see that the soil health is actually quite a bit higher across the cohort than would be expected otherwise, which is just a sort of validation of what we kind of say day to day and what we really try to emphasize people doing, which is lowering tillage, increasing organic matter inputs, and managing their soils diligently. So we're trying to have this research then translate out into educational programming to help farmers farm better. Here's one that I think is really interesting. This is a different study. This is the Diversified Vegetable Financial Benchmark Study. So this is just mixed veg. And this is looking at their financial viability and benchmarking farms against each other. Pandemic slowed us down a little bit, and there's currently 33 folks in this study. If you look at this chart here, on the bottom axis, you've got least profitable to most profitable farms. And then on the vertical axis, you've got what their percent market share is. So you've got CSA and that kind of orange-brown, farmers markets in the tan, direct wholesale in the light green, and other markets in the dark green. You can kind of see as you go through, some of the most profitable farms here, for example, are substantially farmers market oriented, but also some of our least profitable farms are farmers market heavy or farmers market dominant. This is a younger study than the other, but as time goes on, we're trying to really track and gain insights here as far as which market channels make sense for different farms of different scales at different times in their business development. So there aren't a lot of results that we can point out at this point, but going forward as a grower or a prospective grower, we're hoping that folks can look to these and hopefully make some more and some better informed decisions about their market channels as they're choosing them. And one other thing I'll say about this study is that we're actually working right now, as of this past week, on integrating this information into our vegetable apprenticeship program. And what that looks like is taking the lessons we've learned so far, as well as some other data that Pasa has and some training resources, and creating an apprentice-specific workshop for first and second year vegetable apprentices to actually look at and break down the results of this study so far, and to hopefully draw some conclusions about which market channels they're going to choose for themselves so that they're able to make a better informed decision about their business model before they head out into the world of growing. And then the other, this I mentioned as well, this is our first run at actually testing water infiltration. So this is a farm on the left there, and this is actually one of our former apprentices as well. They're in the soil health study, and they're also doing some water infiltration study for us. And that's to help us better understand how a healthy soil is accommodating water. On the right, you've got a different type of infiltration test that we've been doing lately as well. Our farmer training programs, we have two. There's the dairy grazing apprenticeship. As of 2020, we've got 19 folks who are approved as master grazers. We've got 19 apprentices who have been enrolled up to this time. 7 of those are active. several graduates coming through. We really see a lot of great opportunities in grazing dairy. And yeah, if you're interested in this program, we can talk about it more, or we can follow up to connect you to the program manager. That's Aaron DeLong. He's based in Chester County, but again, runs the program statewide. And then this is my program. This is the Diversified Vegetable Apprenticeship. This is our actually first graduated apprentice, Logan, with his host farmer, Liz. He graduated as of December and is moving on to farm management in Delaware. We've got a lot of inquiries, a lot of people reaching out. We've got about 27 approved farmers. That's actually 30 now. We've had a few approved this week. We have had 12 matched apprentices, and we've had 4 graduates of the program so far, one of whom is not listed here, but very exciting in that way. And then the other thing that might be of interest to folks is that we have just, as of this spring or this winter, added in a pre-apprenticeship program in diversified vegetables. And that is a program that is complementary to the full apprenticeship program. It's meant for, it can be folks of any age, but pre-apprenticeships are available to folks under the age of 18. Registered apprenticeships are only 18 or older. So this helps us to be able to work with high school students or even middle school students who might be interested in learning more about food, farming, and food systems. So the Heinz Endowments have generously supported our first year of program administration. We're working with Grow Pittsburgh here in Pittsburgh, and the LEAF Project, which is a great program based in Perry County in Central PA. I'm happy to talk about any of this when we get to the end if you're interested. I'm going to pause for just a moment. I need to switch my power supply, so that I'll just give that a sec. If folks have any questions that they want to include in the chat box, that would be great. Okay. Am I still with you?
You're frozen, and it looks like
okay.
The PowerPoint is still there, but you're frozen.
All right. Are you hearing me all right?
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm gonna keep moving then. Are there any questions that you want to share, Alex?
No, we haven't received any additional questions. Sarah, again, I'm not able to hear you when we unmute you. So if you'd like to type your question in the chat, we can ensure that it gets answered.
Okay, great. I'm not sure why the video is slowed down. Let me give that a hard reset. The next thing I want to talk about is our food shed mapping project. This is very new, and I don't even have all the details. I had to have a briefing this morning on it just to get up to speed myself. But it is very exciting, and every time we talk about it internally, there's a lot of we think a lot of really great opportunities here. So I wanted to highlight this as something that might be useful for folks. The goal here of the food shed mapping project is to make pathways within the food system more visible and accessible to folks, making it easier to shop, sell, source, and share local food and food-related products. To date, we get a lot of inquiries for data from researchers and from companies and from members, and for a variety of different reasons, who are asking, where are all the butcher shops? Where are the culinary grain producers? Questions like that. Those are two that we get a lot. And the answer is we don't really know. We only know as much as our members have shared with us through our membership platform. And we only know what our staff knows kind of, in our own heads. This is an attempt to actually connect a bunch of different organizations and a bunch of different systems via one platform, so that we're actually able to have those systems talk to each other and be complementary to each other, so that we're able to do more in the food system. So Pasa has about 30 other partners involved in this project, sharing different points of data that aren't currently available to each other across platforms, and this is putting it in one comprehensive database. A few of those include the PA Preferred Program and the Pennsylvania Department of Agriculture, the PA Farm Bureau, the Pennsylvania Farmers Union, the Vegetable Growers Association, Buy Fresh, Buy Local statewide, and specifically Farm to Table Western PA. Aaron is a huge part of all of that. And Chatham's Craft Institute, the PA Cheese Guild, and so on. What this will mean is that, historically there have been a bunch of different platforms, and if farmers wanted to maintain their business presence, they were constantly having to update across them, or we as organizations were all reaching out individually. You can imagine getting 10 or 15 or 20 different inquiries to update your profile or share more information about your farm or what you're trying to do. This will basically be a central clearinghouse for the partners to in certain ways be able to share information with each other, be able to connect people to each other. It is currently in its beta testing form, but what we're hoping to have over time is an increasingly elastic and dynamic system that allows for you to search and sort and filter all of this information in different ways and get the different kind of results that you might need. With the goal of increasing product distribution, product aggregation, to improve marketing opportunities, and just to increase coordination in general. So many times folks don't know what other people are up to. And unless you're in touch one-on-one, it can be really easy to be out of the loop. And this hopefully will allow both our food hubs and our food markets, but also the farmers themselves and our processors to all be in touch with each other. To date, this really, they're working on some of the technical details, but the answer right now is if it seems like you want something from this system, that they can basically build almost any kind of search or filtering into it. So if it is something that you'd be interested in getting involved with, Tabitha, who's listed here in the bottom, Tabitha Barbarito is our project manager. She has offered email or phone. Please reach out to her directly. She can get you a set of instructions and a way to actually get registered in the system. And what that'll allow you to do is to actually poke around, see if there's any functionalities that might be useful for you, and you can actually request functionalities to be built in. If you do find any glitches or any connections that aren't being made, a filter isn't fully functional and there's something you want to add to it, we can also, via Tabitha, we can troubleshoot all of that. And she's also offered to provide a demonstration to groups of folks in different parts of the state. So she's doing a presentation for a group in Johnstown, I think next week. And she's offered if folks from the Northwest, want one or two demonstrations virtually, that she'd be happy to do that. Those usually take about 30 minutes to do, and just to walk you through the system and show it to you in a presentation form. It's a lot better than me trying to tell you how great it is, because she's doing it day in and day out. And like I said, if you want to get signed up sooner rather than later, you can reach out to her directly. One of the reasons right now we're not broadcasting it and not really broadly soliciting people to submit profiles or to jump into the system more broadly is that we are waiting on a software and system update that will allow people to jump in a lot more easily in the future. So if this does seem like something that might be worthwhile, I would suggest maybe doing the demonstration and then taking it from there. But yeah, like I said, for all the questions that we get asked about who's doing what where and how to sort of source and distribute food, I think this is going to be really powerful for the next couple of years. And then some additional resources here. Last year, we were doing quite a lot of COVID response programming. We were in touch with the PDA, with the state, with the various state organizations and authorities, trying just to share out best practices, guidance, and protocols that were relevant to farmers, food vendors, and farmers markets, just to help get the season started. So there was a lot of COVID response. We were doing weekly and bi-weekly programming, all of which is still available up on our Pasa resources page. We're also looking at federal and state financing initiatives, things like that. Most of that material is now dated, and many of those programs have lapsed or evolved, and the guidance is, I think, is pretty well distributed at this point. So unless you're looking to really go back and kind of, I'm not sure, dig into the whys and wherefores of what was going on at the time, I think a lot of that is no longer timely for a lot of folks. In talking with our director of operations, we were talking about one other program. The PPP2 is out there right now, the Paycheck Protection Program. I think that's the acronym. And she was highlighting that it requires that businesses demonstrate at least a 25% drop in revenue, and that most of our member farms and most farms in general in 2020 did not see that level of drop. In fact, some farms had their best years ever. And so that the PPP2 was not applicable to anyone who's reached out to us so far. If that does apply to you or to your business, it might be worth looking into, and we'd be happy to direct you to our resources. But just for farms and for food businesses that are dealing directly with folks, that was the sort of takeaway from our experience there. Going forward into 2021, we're going to continue producing those webinar and print resources and put those out as they are needed and available. We are closely monitoring all the various federal developments and programs, and we'll be trying to share out relevant opportunities via our website, via our e-news and things like that. So if you aren't already, I would suggest getting signed up for our e-newsletter and keeping an eye on our resources and events pages for any upcoming program in that space. But really, things seem to have settled out as of right now. The other thing that is we're working on, we have a policy director at Pasa based in Harrisburg, and she is working on the update to the CCC, the Civilian Conservation Corps, which I believe Senator Casey has been involved with, as well as a lot of other folks. We're looking there specifically at trying to reinvigorate and reestablish the CCC in a way that benefits new and beginning farmers, as well as conservation projects to benefit farms and downstream ecosystems through conservation projects. So there aren't a lot of details there, but that is something that's in the works, and you might hear about from us and from others going forward. And then a couple of other program-related things, just from communicating with Alex and from our work. PA was involved in a trial program looking at accepting SNAP for online orders. And we have a webinar up from April 2020 that addresses that. If you're interested in hearing more about the online ordering trial for SNAP. There was, let me see here, there's there's a question about processed products as opposed to fresh market products. And there are only 3 large retailers who are actually approved for some of that. So small processors like the Radish and Rye Food Hub in Harrisburg were not a part of that, which is an issue for us because we see a lot of smaller aggregators and processors as being sort of essential to the food system. Yeah, I'm trying to remember what that note was specifically about. We do see, like I said, this is another place where the food shed mapping project is going to come into play, where consumers and farmers can actually connect with each other via the mapping project in the future. The Farmers Market Nutrition Program, FMNP, there's not really much new going on there. There were some guidance around just laminating signage for better cleaning and just trying to make, keep up the visibility of that program. There was the senior FMNP program was hit particularly hard in 2020. Those are generally smaller value stipends or subsidies. Generally, they're underutilized in a good year and are generally administered via senior centers, which have been closed or significantly altered because of COVID. So that program is really, senior FMMP is really in a tough spot right now. The Farmers to Families Food Box Program. The last contracts, as far as we're aware, were completed in December 2020. The Pittsburgh Food Policy Council coordinated a report on that program. But the conclusion generally from our perspective is that if you didn't already know someone, it was really unlikely that you were going to get involved in that program, that there was such a huge logistical hurdle to clear there that you needed a logistical partner to make that work. Farm to Table Western PA, they served as a logistical hub for one of the successful contracts, but they already had their farmer contacts that they were working with. The one, I think, bright spot or new spot that I would highlight here is the PA PASS program, the Ag Surplus System program. We have a webinar on this from last year as well that was called Contributing to and Benefiting from the Charitable Food System. And in this system, the farmers coordinate with Feeding PA to coordinate plantings that are associated with for future donation, or they're earmarked for future donation. I think a lot of folks have a bumper crop and they think they want to clear it out via food donation. And that's really not the best way either for the charitable food system to handle incoming product or for farmers to try and, move through, excess crop. So having dedicated plantings that are coordinated via Feeding PA are more ideal for folks. And it can be a way to smooth out some production. Tom Mainzer at Feeding PA is the primary contact, and then will help to coordinate with your local food bank or local food distribution network. And I can get you that contact, his email if you'd like. Okay, so that was a lot. I'm going to stop my screen share here and go back to the full view. I'm curious for anybody's questions or anything else I can address for you. Got quite a bit of time.
Sarah, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? If you're talking, we still can't hear you.
I guess that's from you, Alex. Yeah, about having Tabitha present to the FPAC meeting. Yeah, I think that'd be really great. It honestly feels a little bit like a Rorschach test at this point, that the food shed mapping program can be almost anything we need it or want it to be. So again, I would say not to hold back on either what you've seen before, but to really ask for what you think would be most useful from it. In talking to Tabitha this morning, just to get the latest and greatest, it sounds like the new platform has some really dynamic adaptability to it. So it's not just your sort of traditional, web filter sort of functions, but it actually is can sort of provide second order and third order dynamic search. So that should be really useful.
We received another question regarding the soil mapping project.
Yeah.
Do you know what soil characteristics were measured to determine soil health?
Oh gosh, yes. So we use the Cornell Comprehensive Soil Health Assessment, if folks are familiar with that. It looks at, gosh, I want to say like 17 or so different metrics of soil health, including soil organic matter, aggregate stability, all the various nutrient profiles, CO2 burst, things like that. So it is really, it's a traditional, sort of chemical analysis, but then it layers on all of the dynamic biological properties in there. Here, let's see. Oh, Alex, you look like you're muted now.
Yep, it looks like we have a question from Stephanie Thauer.
Sure.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Hi, do you mind going into a little bit more detail about the farmers to families?
Sure. I'll see what I can do there.
Well, I'm just curious about the structure you had, and like what role did the farm to table, like did the food all go to one hub and then it was people came to that space, or was it like, how was it kind of set up?
Yeah, so I believe the various organizing businesses and entities, they aggregated the food at their locations via their networks, then distributed it out. I think they were doing regional distributions, not like home individual distributions, as far as I know. So yeah, it was generally food hubs or food aggregators who had the capacity to coordinate those food products in and then distribute them out. My understanding is that was generally pretty large food distributors. So that Farm to Table Western PA was one of the smallest aggregator distributors involved in that project, because you had to have a certain level of logistical capability and high level connections, to pull it all off. And a lot of most individual farms didn't have that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And just to add to that, I have heard some a little bit of criticism around the program and the way it was rolled out for that very reason. Just that there were a lot of barriers for farmers to participate, and one of the biggest barriers was just knowing about it before it happened. It wasn't really rolled out in a way that lent itself well to planning. It was really like the applications came out, you had to know about it, you had to get in on it, and it happened so quickly. So that's one thing. And then just so you're aware, Stephanie, I actually don't know how, but American Heart Association, they were a contact with one of the logistical coordinators for our region. That provider was not based in Pennsylvania, the person or the organization that handled logistics, but they provided the food for Erie County residents through a series of churches, a network of churches. But that was an interesting thing is for our region, they actually were an out-of-state vendor who got the contract.
Wow.
Yeah, it's it was a very quick turnaround, and it was a very specific kind of task to accomplish. So yeah, it was a challenge. One of the things that we've been involved with more recently is the Allegheny Eats program, and I'm not sure how much of that is getting up your way. But Sustainable Pittsburgh has been running point with a coalition of a couple different organizations to use idled restaurant capacity, so restaurants that are closed or takeout only, and their restaurant staff and kitchen capacity to actually do a buy one donate one meal scheme. So the Sustainable Pittsburgh has been, like I said, they've been vetting the applicants, the restaurants and the food businesses. And then Pasa has been providing insight. We have a buy local component to that program. So connecting food businesses that aren't already sourcing from local farms and local food businesses, providing them the connection to those businesses so that they're able to include fresh local produce in their distribution. And then the folks from the general public, the cost of their meal, then they receive whatever the meal is, and then a comparable meal is then donated into the system. So it has been a bit of a logistical hurdle to clear, because that is a lot of both vetting and coordinating, but that's now up and running. And for a while there, it looked like with the summer COVID cases going down, like that might be out of date by the time it was active. But now we're seeing with all of the latest COVID challenges that it's as timely as ever. So that might be something to look at for folks who have interest in that space. One other build out that I'll mention about the soil health study, since you asked about that, was so we mentioned the water infiltration and the nutrient density stuff. The other thing we're looking at is trying to connect that with farm profitability. So to take the two studies and actually merge them together at a certain point to see, is there any connection? And if so, what are those points of connection between farms that do maintain a high level of soil health? Are they actually more sustainable or more functional as businesses, or what are the wrinkles in the relationship between those two? As we build out a larger and larger cohort in both studies, we're obviously getting better results in that regard. So that's a really interesting place to take it as well. So is it actually producing healthier food, and is it producing healthier businesses, which sort of closes the loop on kind of farm sustainability, we think. We also had some really interesting results. The soil health study has been going on long enough now that we're able to track farms year to year. And when you have major shock events like the 2018 rain events, we were anywhere from 30 to 60% above normal across a lot of the farms in terms of rain in 2018. We're actually able to see what that does to soil health across the state and across our cohort. And so you could actually see in 2017, folks have a very high level of soil health across the cohort. And there was basically a uniform drop in soil health because of the excess moisture across the entire research cohort. That includes all of the permanent pastures and things like that. We were able now, because we've seen 2019's data and because we're starting to see 2020's data coming in, it basically was about a 50% recovery in 2019. And we're hoping that in 2020, we're getting up to 75, 80, 90, maybe even 100% recovery from that drop in soil health in 2018. So again, more and more trying to see also in there which farming systems are most able to adapt to those extreme weather events. So.
Very cool. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. We do have another question. Are you aware of any resources available to farmers or market coordinators who want to accept SNAP or EBT?
Yes, I asked our director of operations because there was a sort of a flurry of activity around this a while back, and then I feel like there's been a bit of a quiet spell now. That name, let's see here, I think is Rachel Ward at the Farmers Market Coalition, and I can I'll provide Rachel's email here to Alex just to share out among the group afterward. But yeah, Farmers Market Coalition does a lot of really great work if you're not familiar with them, and they've been working on the SNAP and EBT access and coordination issues, and then we've been just sort of auditing and taking from their work. So yeah, I would say we'll share that out.
Awesome, thank you. And another question that we had was regarding any research surrounding the number of farms or the number of markets that could be supported based on the number of farms in a given area.
Yes, absolutely. Thanks for reminding me on that one. There isn't a lot of data yet. I think Brian Moyer and others do a lot of work in this space and are always looking at it. But each of the farm market and the metropolitan areas have such unique characteristics to them. We were talking before this started just about the combination of city coordinated versus community development versus nonprofit coordinated markets, and it's a challenge in that way to know what a market can hold. Our hope is that via the food shed mapping project, we'll actually be able to map out where the existing markets are and to start looking at some of those product flows and some of the market activity as a proxy for market viability. So that would be a fantastic initial question to send Tabitha's way for us to keep tabs on and to try and build in some triggers for, because I think that'd be really helpful. It is helpful sometimes to set out your parameters, as a community or as a region, what you want your markets to look like or what you think they could look like, and maybe to have some comparable communities or other spaces to look at as well, because that often is really helpful then for benchmarking a region or benchmarking an individual market against the standard. Here in Southwest PA, we were going through a process of looking at like sort of food system dynamics starting about 2 years ago. And we used the example of Philadelphia's food system mapping as a jumping off point. They were actually using, I believe it was Commerce Department data to look at food flows in and out of the region via the highway system as a proxy for food activity in the system. And then you can kind of work down, you find out where the gaps are and you can fill in that data from there. So I think that there are some unique approaches in that regard as well to be thinking about how food moves and where food is accessible and how it's viable.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other questions that they'd like to ask?
Well, while we wait for that, I'll put in a plug again for our pre-apprenticeship program and say that, like I said, that's meant to be an introduction to vegetable growing and vegetable farming. We're working with high school programs now, but we're taking a sort of an umbrella approach where we are the coordinator, but we aren't providing the services. We actually need local partners to be the ones to administer the pre-apprenticeship to their students or to their communities. So if you do have an existing program, both the Grow Pittsburgh program and the LEAF program are existing programs that work with high school students on farms or in urban growing. What they're doing is taking this curriculum and the framework that we've built for the pre-apprenticeship and actually using it as an overlay for their program. So now they have a very comprehensive skills list and a set of suggested topics for additional instruction and activities and things like that. Both of those organizations also have a really strong food system and food justice component to their work. So they really, in each of their lessons, even when they're talking about things like irrigation, they start off on the farm and then they go global with why would you irrigate? Why water? That kind of thing, and then bring it back down to the farm again. So there's a lot of really great opportunities there, both to connect with peer programs, to have that backstop support and structure, and to train students more comprehensively. So we're always interested in entertaining anyone who might be interested in that program. And even if it's not a fit right now, we're always happy to have a conversation about where it might fit down the road. So please feel free to reach out on that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think I could definitely see some interest in our region in something like that. So
we've even had a couple of requests from middle school programs where they're going to take the adapted curriculum and then adapt it down even further to just basic concepts and principles for middle school students to be able to just get a first kind of blush at those topics. So yeah, we're excited about
cool.
that.
Well, thank you so much, Dan, for taking the time to talk with us today. I really appreciate it. I'm sorry about the interruption earlier. I will be doing my best to edit that out of the recording. Not something I'm experienced with, but we'll see what I can do. To learn more about what the Erie FPAC does, please check us out on Facebook at Erie FPAC. Otherwise, please feel free always to reach out with any questions you might have. The FPAC is here to help. Thank you and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
Thanks.